No, that one was better. There wasn't really
That
any,
was
no attitude with that one. So.
Question of trespassing signs, and it's a complete bar. So the question was mainly, do we leave it? Can we really make that
I
valid?
knew that. And I
on
see them all
behalf
the
of
time when I'm
residents?
campaigning, and I think,
But it
what
also
sort of
included
person
political,
puts up
so
in
then
those
it was like,
solicitation signs?
Can we go
They
and
kind of
talk to
threaten
our
you to
residents
shoot
as
you when
elected
you're
officials?
walking on
I mean,
the
I think
same
wording
kind.
wise, of course, you can interpret it your own way as an elected official, but that was just the
And I've
concern
thought
was
about
like,
it, to be honest, because after a while,
it supports
you
it
know,
as
how
them as an
many
exemption, but then
times do
like,
you have to hear
we're
the
gonna give
pitch
validity
about,
to people's no trespassing signs on behalf of the city.
ugh,
But I didn't put much thought into it. That was
many of them
it just seemed like
absolutely will not shut up.
You know,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's just the way society's working.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be bothered with
You
anything.
should, but do you,
Anything,
I guess
everything.
the question is, do we expect the city to
Well,
enforce
this-
that? So is it worth
as we
leaving
all
in there,
know,
or are
this
we not gonna
door-to-door
enforce it, so should
solicitation
we take
thing,
that provision out?
our kids go out of state, other states' kids come in
That's the
state.
thing.
It's a thing. It's a
Right.
summer
Yeah.
cool
Anyway, that
thing
was
for
the question,
kids to
'cause it
do,
seemed like
and they're
I didn't know if it was
aggressive
worth
and
talking about.
they're coached,
Okay.
you know, how to do it and not take no for an answer.
All right.
Bless-
Okay.
Can you
6
go
p.m.?
about an inch high instead of 2 feet high?
Well, depends on how many people are talking. But thanks for the suggestion. All right. At 6 p.m.
Unnecessary.
Thank you for your feedback on that.
And I'll give it to you every time. I think it's necessary to be said.
As long as I give you permission to speak, that's fine. Okay, so it's 6 p.m. Welcome to our Riverdale City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. Please let the record show that all city council members are present, with Councilor Merrill joining us via telephone. There are also members of the city staff as well as members of the public with us tonight. We've asked Councilor Arnold if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Could everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Arnold. I have asked our Community Development Director, Mr. Eggett, if he would provide us with an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity we have to be together to discuss the opportunities and the enjoyment and the wonderful decisions we get to make as members of the community of Riverdale. We're thankful for thy hand in helping us to make decisions that are of benefit and hopefully help many members of the community to thrive and enjoy living in this community. We ask that you please bless that at this time we have thy assistance in helping us to make the right decisions, to think about those in the community who have interests or needs and be able to be open to helping them in the decision making and the commentary that we have tonight. And I ask you please bless that will help us to be civil and kind and understanding of each other's viewpoints and respectful as we work through the discussions of tonight's agenda. And these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Eggett. We'll now have a time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the City Council regarding any concerns or ideas you may have. No action will be taken during the public comment. If you approach the mic, please state your name and the city that you reside in, and try to limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
My name is Lorraine Richards. I lived in Riverdale for 53 years. And I pay my bills by payment partner. And something happened at 3 of my bills that I thought were paid were not. One of them was the Riverdale water bill. And as soon as I got this double bill, I went in and paid it. And I think it says we got it on October 10th, and it says current charges due date October 31st. But I went and paid it, and it was as soon as I could get it in with the payment partner was October 14th. And I paid it, and the next day I got this. It said there was a $15 late fee charged to it. And all my 53 years, I don't think I've ever been late. And I've called the city offices to see if I could get it taken care of. And they said I had to talk to the mayor. And then when I tried to get hold of you, I was told I had to come to the city council meeting in order to get any relief from that $15 late fee. Now, it's very hard for me to get out. I have to have somebody drive me. So that's all I have to say. That's the circumstances, and I'm hoping that you will look at this and give me some relief for that $15 late fee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
Do you want me to address that? I got a
You don't
little bit
mind.
of background information I can help you with. I can confirm that this is true. She's never had any issues with the city. Mayor Mitchell actually asked me to look at this, and we did quite extensively, spent a lot of time. There is nothing in our code that gives us that authority to waive anything. I thought maybe that we could find something that the mayor could do it, but I couldn't find anything in there, which would make sense because money issues are a council thing. So I told her that she was going to have to come in here and express that. I mean, it would be nice if we had some authority on occasions to waive little things like that, a late fee, and we could put procedures and stuff in. I don't know if you're comfortable with that, but it would be nice to have that authority because as it stands right now, we have nothing as a staff or even the mayor. So that's why I didn't feel we had a choice but to have her come in and express that to you. But I mean, if you want us to work on a proposal, I mean, if it was just small amounts, there are occasions when we get good, legitimate complaints that we would waive if we had that authority, but we take a hard line stand on it because we don't have it, in my mind. So that's just where we're at. But if you want us to work on something, we could postpone this one for a little bit and have something by the next meeting. But that's up to you guys. I mean, this is in your court, and unless you give us authority, we can't do it. So that's kind of the hardline stand I took on that one.
Councilor Hilton?
Yeah, I agree. There should be some administrative waiver authority with you and maybe the public works director or even staff, however we want to do it. But certainly someone should have that authority.
See, I think in the history, we've had some of these things, not this particular instance like this one, but like when the, I can't remember if it was Military Academy or the Good Foundation School had a leak and they just didn't take care of it. And they came in a petition to have their bill, I can't remember if it was reduced of some sort, but I think when we bring something to the council, and its way, I think, Mrs. Richards should be able to take it to the council without coming to a council meeting. I mean, I think we need to be careful, given the staff the authority to do that, because then when we're questioned, it's like, why did you say yes for one and not the other? That we kind of get into an issue, and that's why. But I think to be able to bring it to the council without coming in, I mean, I see. I'm assuming, Corey, that's your mom. I see Corey all the time, so, I mean, he could have said, hey, we got this issue, and I'd be like, okay, I can call a council member or the mayor and have it put on the agenda without having somebody come in and we can look at it. I just worry about having the staff say sure to this person and no to this person and then have them say why. I mean, that it's a level of protection for you guys. But I think it should be able to come to the council much easier than having somebody come and address it at a city council meeting, because, I mean, we get phone calls all the time, which I'll address later in the meeting as well, but
My thought was on that, Alan, is we would have a set of rules that we would follow, so you guys would know, and you would have to approve that. And then at least on little things, you know, people with no histories, really small amounts and things like that, I think we could write up something pretty easy that rather than even burden you guys with that, because that would be something we wouldn't normally do if we didn't have to. But where we have no authority, I can't do anything at this point. So that was my thought, is we could come up with a policy and procedures that we would follow. And if you signed off on them, then you would know, or, well, it's got to fit in this certain category or it's not going to fly. Like if it's self-caused and they've been told, because a lot of those things we warn them, especially when they got water leaks and stuff like that, and they let that go on for 2 or 3 months, then at that point we're not really feeling too sorry for them. But in this case, where it was just a simple mistake and there's never been any history and stuff like that, then I would think we could write something up. But it's up to you guys. I don't care one way or another.
I
So
think it'd be great to have.
Counselor Stevens, then Counselor Hanson.
Okay, you're talking about writing an ordinance to put in an ordinance, right?
yeah, we'd have to come up with something.
Okay, so if we do an ordinance, are we making it retro? Anyway, that's a rhetorical question, because obviously we would like to maybe review this situation. So how far back retro are we going to look at? 6 months, 10 years? I don't know, whatever. That's a rhetorical question for you. Second thing is, in the military, we had a term called TPI, two-person integrity, 2 TPI, when you're dealing with anything that's classified or you're dealing with anything that's budgetary. And that is that 2 decision makers, whether it's signatures on a check or whatever, so that way you can't say, well, this person showed bias for or against something. So if you have, I don't know, city manager and public works director or somebody, and that's something to be put into that. And then the other thing is having worked for the IRS for a number of years, they had a protocol that allowed, if they had a good filing history or whatever, and you got penalized by the IRS, and if you hadn't had an issue for whatever the issue was, you could be waived on the penalty. Not, if you owed money, you still owed money, but you could be waived on the penalty if you had 3, 4, 5 years, depending on what the certain situation was. And that was common practice, because invariably somebody's going to make a mistake. Now, sometimes they fall on hard times and they'll just say, okay, cost of doing business. But an honest mistake should have a recourse to it. And so if they have a history of compliance, and then there's a one-off, let's have a mechanism that allows for that to be dealt with, and it can be dealt with internally, meaning two people saying yes, we both agree, whatever. Okay, that's all.
Okay, Counselor Hanson.
I think Counselor Stevens mainly covered what I was going to say. When I was running the utility billing department, basically we just had an internal policy that any of my line staff who took a phone call could look at the history and see that they'd always paid on time and had never had a fee returned, and they had the authority to just go ahead and take care of it. I mean, there's no reason even to get the city administrator involved on something that simple, but it could be that specific and narrow. And there were a couple little things, policies internal on utility billing like that I think that's a great idea, to see if there's a way to make that a little bit easier for your staff and for the residents.
Well, I can work on something, bring it back next
Yeah.
meeting if you guys are okay
Can
with
we do
that.
like a consensus? I mean,
Yeah,
do we-
yeah. Make sure we got a majority on it. So.
Are you going to make it so that it would capture?
I think so, given the situation, because I've had to postpone this for this purpose. So we've not done anything on hers for that reason, because she's had a legitimate concern. She did reach out to us quite quickly, and we just had no options. I looked hard. I mean, I even tried to stretch it a little bit and couldn't find anything. So it was tough.
So, all those that would like Mr. Brooks to work on something, just kind of raise your hand. Okay, looks like we do want that.
Okay.
Did you have a comment?
How did I remember Chuck Kerfleet came in one time with something like this. It wasn't on the agenda. How did we resolve it? Because we did.
With Chuck's,
Yeah.
probably broke the law by doing it, but
Okay. I was just thinking.
I don't want to go back there, Alan. Let's just leave that one
Just so you
alone.
know, this whole conversation is bigger than your situation, but it will get taken care of. So I believe.
And Mrs. Richards, just so you know, I've talked to Mr. Brooks several times about it. I wasn't just ignoring you. We were trying to figure out who has the authority. Can I do it? Like, how do we get this done? And I could have put your issue on the agenda. I have the authority to just say waive late fee for Lorene Richards. But I personally felt like if you were to come in and address the council, you might be able to get a little more. It would be really easy without a face, without knowing who Lorene Richards is, or, with no face to it, to just say, oh, sorry, we don't do that. No, if it was just an agenda item and you weren't here. So I know it was a big hassle for you guys to get here, but you actually probably are going to help us solve a bigger problem. And so thank you for your help with the city and your long-term residency. Like, we know you've been here a long time, and thank you, Corey, for making the effort to get your mom here. So hopefully we can get something worked out and yeah.
And her faithfulness and paying her bill on.
Yeah, and always paying your bill on time. Yeah. If we can't make it retroactive, I'll pay your $15.
I will too.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. Yeah. Okay,
We
very
actually
good.
had some staff members
Yeah.
that were going to do that, a number of them. But again, I felt it was best that we approach you guys to make sure we did it right. So that's
Bigger
where we're
issue,
at.
so that's good. All right, seeing no other public comments, we'll move on to presentation reports. Number one, the mayor's report. I don't have very much. I did want to just mention that we do have the Veterans Program coming up on the 11th. That's on a Friday. I'd encourage the council members to be there if they can. Mayor Searle is going to conduct for us this year, and that should be pretty exciting. I know he's got... I just lost his name, but anyway, one of the colonels coming for the 419th to speak to us, and we've got the Bonneville Tapestry is going to sing. The Bonneville Band is going to play a musical number, so it should be really good. So I'd encourage you to be there. As far as council assignment reports, are there any reports from your assignments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from October 18th, 2022 council work session and a council meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, a motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
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 Are there any opposed? Councilor Merrill?
Yeah, sorry, I said it with everyone, but I wasn't sure if you heard me.
Okay, is that a yes from you?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. Okay. We'll now move on to the action items. Discussion concerning consideration of granting the funding request of the Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center, the CJC, in an amount not to exceed $62,267,000.16 to partially fund the construction of a new CJC in Weber County. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. You're all familiar with this. We did list that with an amount certain because that was the amount that they asked us for. We've reached out to neighboring cities to see what each one of them have done, and I'll just go down the list and just read those to you. So we asked, I had Michelle ask them 4 different questions. So, did your city contribute funding for the new building? If so, how much? And was it the full amount that was asked for or a percentage? Third question was, is the contribution to be paid all at once, or was it broken down into payments? Because we had heard that some cities had broken it down into 3-year payments. Not that it would matter, but we just wanted to know what all our options were. And then the fourth one was it approved to use with ARPA funds, or did you contribute from another fund? So that was kind of the gist of what we wanted to know. These were just still rolling in late this afternoon. We got Marriott Slaterville. They did pay theirs in full, and they did use ARPA. South Ogden did pay it full. They didn't use ARPA. They used... They did not use CJC's agreement, too. That was a different agreement, but they didn't use ARPA funds. They pulled it from somewhere else. North Ogden did pay it in the full amount, did not use ARPA. Huntsville, yes, full amount, and they did use ARPA. Morgan did not pay. They just said it's not in the budget. We got a new bridge to pay for, and so they have opted out. Far West did pay full amount, not ARPA. They had already used all their ARPA, so they didn't have any to pull from. So, and they chose to do the 3-year payment because of their situation. And Roy, they did pay it with conditions. Let's see, Roy City has approved their contribution and interlocal agreement through the council. They have agreed to pay what was asked for. Let's see, it was approved to use ARPA funds through the SLFRF. I'm not sure what that is, Cody. Okay, so they did use the ARPA. Let's see, their agreement states that, and then this was some of the terms that they wrote. So obviously their agreement was different. They said that their deposits shall remain with the county and not dispersed until the following occurs. Ogden City has recorded a conveyance to the county for the parcel. So it sounds to me like there's still some outstanding things there that haven't occurred. So the county has received all necessary zoning and subdivision approvals from Ogden City that will allow the construction to go forward. And their last thing was that the county has received a signed agreement from the Friends of the Children's Justice Center that all proceeds from this will be allocated towards, or from their current CJC building. So when they sell that all those funds are going to go towards this to help pay for it. So until those things have occurred, they're not saying our money's available. So they made it a little bit tougher. They still did it, but it's with conditions. So. And some of those things, I don't know. I mean, I think all of those we would want to see, whether or not they're that crucial to us or not. It's up to you guys how you want to do it. So that's where we're at. I guess we need to decide, if you're going to contribute, how much, and what funds we're going to use or pull it from. And Cody can give you more details if you want to know. We do have ARPA funds. We've been sitting really tight on those, mainly because our West Bench is such a hot topic right now. We wanted, in case we needed to pull money really fast, we wanted to have that available. So that makes me really nervous pulling money out of there. We have it, and we got probably plenty to cover this. Just the more we have up there, in case we need that really fast, we want to make sure we have that. The one thing that I look at this and say that I feel a little bit better about if you choose to do it is that argument that I could say, well, it did come out of ARPA funds. That was one-time money that we're never going to get again. And so I can say if the Women's Center comes in and says we need money, I say that we had one-time money. That's what we did. That's why we used it. So that's the one logical thing that I see in there. I still have a hard time seeing how they say that money can be used for that. But we have a state opinion from the AG's office saying we can. So that is the one thing that gives me a little bit of comfort. And then I can argue if somebody else comes in that we don't have the money for it, and we don't do that generally. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Any questions? Councilor Stevens.
In the planning session, you said you had some concerns that this was a private entity. Now, is it a pseudo-private entity? I mean, from the way I understand it, because Roy City Mayor made some, comments, demands, I don't know how it was. Did Weber County take control of it, or is it still a private entity? Or is it I don't know. Is it because...
As far as I know, it's still a private entity. I don't think that's ever changed. I think Weber's just kind of spearheading it because they're contributing the greatest amount, plus they are more familiar with the ARPA funds and things like that. And so they took the ball on that one.
So there's a bunch of different kinds of nonprofits, right? And some of them are controlled completely under local governments. And there's reasons they do that because sometimes they get funding and stuff for that. As far as I know, the Children's Justice Center is not that. It works very closely with Weber County, but it is not controlled by Weber County. So it is a totally separate legal entity. And there's actually, I believe, multiple entities under that umbrella. That's why in this agreement from Roy, they talk about it's the Friends of the Children's Children's Justice Center. I believe that's their fundraising component, and it's actually a separate legal entity too. That's a nonprofit that's just associated with raising funding for the Children's Justice Center. That's why originally this thing didn't go, because a few of the cities were like, no, we're not contributing money to a nonprofit that we don't have any control of this facility or any of those kind of things. And as far as your comment earlier about negotiating them out, we don't have to negotiate them out with the Children's Justice Center. You guys just have to decide, okay, are we going to contribute the amount they're asking for, or are we going to contribute an amount lesser? And if you contribute an amount lesser, it's totally up to you guys what you decide. We don't need to negotiate that. And that's why like South Ogden City are like, we're just going to make a donation to you guys of the amount you requested. We're not signing your agreement. So
when we talked about this the first time, it seems like we talked about why they're private versus a government entity, and it seems like there was a bunch of red tape they'd have to jump through if they were a government entity. So they specifically want to avoid that by being this private thing, but really they're under the umbrella of the government. Is that?
They're not really under the umbrella of the government. They're used exclusively by governments.
Aren't they funded by government?
Some by the state, but a ton by fundraising. And so it's more advantageous for them to be like a 501c3, because there's a lot of businesses that, from tax purposes, they can't get a deduction if they donate to like Riverdale City. So there's some cities that even have 501c3s under them. Like I know Clinton City has one. And so then like if they go to one of their businesses and say, hey, we want a donation, they'll a lot of times donate it to their 501c3, not to the city, because they get a tax write-off for that.
Okay, thank you.
And
Is
so
that
that's
fair, though, that they're intentionally wanting to ease their regulatory burden by being private?
Yeah, I would say that it goes along with their funding mechanism to do that. And they obviously work very closely with Weber County and like our police department and even the state, like the Attorney General's office individual that wrote that. I believe he's associated with their board. And so they're very closely tied in. They're just not 100% under a local government. So it's a little funny because we contribute this money and they build a building. Let's say something weird happens and they sell it. It's not like the city or Weber County has any recourse on that facility, but the odds of that happening are very low. And that's why everybody wanted them to turn it over to Weber County, because then that couldn't happen.
And they are doing that, right?
Right. I believe so. That was
originally going to turn over to the CJC once it was built.
Right.
And I think now the building will be turned over to Weber County and it will be owned by Weber County.
Right. And Weber County works very closely. Like I have a family member who used to work for Weber County and IT, and they actually went to the CJC and they provided IT for the CJC. And like the county works very closely and almost like runs the facility. It's just some of the fundraising gets done by this quasi nonprofit for funding purposes. So I feel like in a lot of ways, like Steve said, to use the ARPA funding, it's a good way to say, hey, like this is one-time money. We're only making this contribution one time. I really like what Roy did. I think they came up with some great things there and making sure that like their donation's a little more protected.
Question on that. Roy's trying to cover themselves based on what seems like a feeling that Roy has that they're not going to actually build this building. Is that fair?
I think they just want to make sure that they really build the building, that they don't give their donation and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, like the building's not going to work.
Anything at the basis of that?
No, I think I would assume they're just being extra careful. So, because I believe it from all intentions. And it's kind of weird how they work, because they actually talk to Scott, I think, more than like any of the rest of us, because Scott's the one, his department's the one that utilizes them. So it's just kind of a little weird how it's all set up, but I don't think you should have a lot of concerns about that. It's just, I think what Roy did, it just makes it extra safe that like, hey, we did everything we could to make sure that this is really legit. And it probably even helps in the future if somebody else comes forward that you can say, look, this is some of the parameters we put in for the donation, and more than likely they're not going to be able to meet those
and
parameters.
I also like, for what it's worth, Roy's rules or contingencies, and I like the idea of tying it to ARPA so we have that excuse in the future.
So
Okay.
And can I just add one little thing? So if we use ARPA funds, we don't even really have to do a budget amendment. We can set out the public hearing so that we can disclose that we're doing that because we need to do that. And what I would end up doing is just adding a line, like a budget note that says we're making a contribution to the Children's Justice Center for this amount. But we actually don't need to move money around because we have an ARPA expenditure line item. If you read my executive summary, I tried to allude to that it kind of depended where you guys decided to make the contribution for, if we needed to do a budget amendment or reallocation or just kind of add a budget note. So any other questions for me?
We'll have you sit close by, just in case. Because I think we're going to do the public hearing.
Yeah, I have a question for him.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that your personal laptop or is that city?
It's city. It's an iPad.
I know. It's just like, and we got Chromebooks and you got. Okay, never mind.
I use mine all day, every day.
Okay. We need to have a public hearing on this proposed budget amendment. So we need a motion to open the public hearing. We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All right, the public hearing is
Yes.
now. Oh, thank you. Public hearing is now open. Seeing no public comment, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say yes.
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 All right, the public hearing is now closed. Okay,
Last hour.
that would be a mess if they changed that. Okay, so are there any other questions for Mr. Cardin? So just procedurally, Mr. Brooks, on the resolution, the resolution is to adopt an amendment.
Well, yeah, if that's the route we go, aren't you saying though we wouldn't have to if we pull that out of ARPA?
Yes, we just need to, I believe per our royals and procedures and state law, we just need to disclose budgetarily that we're making that donation. So it's kind of weird, right? So I think you'd say that we're doing like a budget amendment to just include this donation. We're really not moving money around. We're just adding a budget note and officially declaring that we're making this donation.
Vote, you don't think?
I don't think, if we're not doing it.
So we wouldn't even need to vote? We would just do a consensus to do that? Or should we? Should we do
You'd need a motion, but instead of it being a budget amendment, it's just what'd you call it?
And let's use the word reallocation, even though we're really not moving money, because we were planning on spending that money internally, and we're going to move it to another entity, and that will probably work. So.
And so it'll still fall under the resolution, or do we need to reword that resolution?
No, we wouldn't need that resolution. I think you just do it by a motion.
A motion?
Yeah, on what you're going to do. Right, Cody? Isn't that what we think?
So.
Fine
Yeah.
at it.
Did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry. What you were?
He was going to make a motion.
Oh, okay. I was trying to hear. I thought there was a side conversation.
Yeah, no, he said he'll make a motion
I
if.
said I'll take a stab at it. I would make a motion that we reallocate the funding requested not to exceed, or let's see, for the Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center in the amount not to exceed $62,267.16. But I'd also like to ask that we put the same rules that Roy has on theirs and open it up to staff that if they think of anything else that they can watch, that they'd be able to do that.
Okay.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Henson,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold,
Yes.
Counselor Merrill,
Yes.
Counselor Hilton,
Yes.
Counselor Stevens.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Very good. All right, move on to item number 3. Consideration of ordinance 958 to approve proposed rezone request from regional commercial C3 zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning for property located at approximately the southeast corner of 4400 South and 700 West in Riverdale, as requested by Forza Development Group. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Forza Development Group is represented tonight by Mr. Chris Hatch, who's in the audience. If you have questions for him, please feel free to do so. It's on approximately 0.71 acres of property, as noted at the corner of 4400 South and 700 West. The ownership of the property is Garf Properties Riverdale LLC. There was a public hearing held with the Planning Commission on October 11th, 2022. At the conclusion of the public hearing, wherein we didn't have any commentary prior or during the meeting, at the conclusion of that, the Planning Commission discussed it and made a motion and approved said motion for a favorable recommendation to City Council of the approval of the rezone request. The general plan, as noted in the work session, is set as planned commercial high. This would be supportive and not detrimental to that use, and therefore could be sustainable as matching the use of the planned commercial high, benefiting surrounding commercial businesses in the area. The application is found in your packet. All requirements for the application have been completed. The property owner has signed off on the application. The fee has been paid, and then you'll see that there's some commentary regarding the rezone request in the packet. And as noted, the public hearing checklist is found thereafter, showing proof that we did complete all the required public hearing standards for said public hearing. And with that, really, I don't have much more to add, so I'll defer to the City Council if you have questions for me or Mr. Hatch. Thank you.
Any questions from the City Council on this item?
Yes.
Councilor Stevens.
No.
I don't have any questions.
For Mr. Hatch.
If you'll come up to the microphone, please, Mr. Hatch, and just state your name.
Okay, so the property on the corner is presently owned by Garf Group. When I went on to GeoGizmo and looked at the plat map, I think that's what it was called. What's it going to be titled? Who's going to be the owner after you take control of it?
Good question. I'm Chris Hatch. I'm with Forza Development. I reside in Salt Lake City. So to answer your question, Forza Development has been contracted by the owner of the trailer park to assist
Is that
them.
39 or H&H 39th Street?
Yes, H&H 39th Street.
Are you part of that LLC?
I'm here representing Forza Development, which is
You're not part of the ownership of the H&H?
I'm presenting to you tonight as Forza Development.
I know,
which is
but I'm asking you, are you a member of the ownership of 39th Street?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That was my question.
Right.
Is Garf a member of the ownership of 39th Street?
No.
So Garf is relinquishing all control?
You want me to answer the first question or that question?
Both.
Okay. The first question is, we were contracted by H&H 39th Street, which I am a member of, but not the entire owner of. And as part of that process, our job is to get a vertical development plan put into place with the city and that we can come and present for approval. And as part of that, we noticed that Garf had property on the west and on the east, and it seemed to make a little bit more sense to have the Garf properties consolidated and put those together. And so we assisted H&H in entering into I think it's titled a swap agreement, basically, more or less, where we swap 1 square foot of land for 1 square foot of land. So they swapped the west side for land that will be located on the east side, which will be contiguous to the existing parcel they have on the east side now. And so ultimately what will happen is H&H 39th Street, or a single purpose entity that it becomes the development vehicle here, will be that entity that will own the property on the west side. So, sorry, I forgot your second question.
No, that's all right.
Does that answer the question?
That was good.
There aren't any members of Garf in any of these development entities other than the 2 parcels they own and operate, but they're not tied into the ownership of the apartment, what would be a future multifamily project.
Okay, so Forza is developing on behalf of what will become H&H.
Yes, correct. And it may go under, ultimately, H&H may contribute its property to, Riverdale multifamily or whatever that might end up being, something else, but yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 958 as stated within the packet.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Hilton?
Yes.
Counselor Stevens?
No.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Merrill?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
All right, that passes with a vote of 4-1. All right. Item number 4, consideration of ordinance 959 to approve proposed rezone request from regional commercial C3 zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning for property located at approximately 4450 South, 700 West Riverdale, as requested by Forza Development Group. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Yeah, as noted, again, Forza Development is represented tonight by Mr. Chris Hatch, who is with us. The property is 0.87 acres of land. The ownership is the Carey Family Properties LLC. It has been operated historically for many years as the Carey Cycle Center. We're sad to see them go, but we do understand that they have other desires for their family, and so we're happy for them to have that opportunity. I will note at the Planning Commission meeting, we did have a public hearing as noted on the last item, and there was a motion to recommend approval to the City Council of said request. And also, Ms. Karen Boswell was present in the audience and showed support for Mr. Hatch during that meeting. So with that, I would defer to the council if you have any other questions for me or Mr. Hatch. And again, all the supporting documents are found in the packet as stated on the last item.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Eggett. Any questions for Mr. Eggett or Mr. Hatch on this item? Seeing none, Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 959 as stated within the packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Stevens?
No.
Counselor Merrill?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Hilton?
Yes.
All right. That passes by a vote of 4-1. Thank you, Mr. Hatch, for being here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Eggett. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, discussion and consideration of ordinance 960, creating city code concerning solicitation rules.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned in our pre-planning meeting, this has been an issue with us for quite some time. We just had a hard time finding something that was really, I think, legally sound and one that fits well for Riverdale. It's becoming obvious that we've got to get something in place. These are getting more and more frequent, and we've got to have a means of protecting our citizens while at the same time respecting these people's right to travel and different things. So this ordinance is one of the better ones I've seen for some time. I was really happy when I read through it. We've tweaked it a little bit, made it fit our situations, and it's just one we need to pass. It's just it's been long in coming, and Mayor Mitchell had asked me to work on this a while ago, and I've slowly been chipping away at it until I finally come across one, which kind of shocked me because it was our own neighboring city, but Andy over there did a good job on it, so I was pretty impressed. They got it from somewhere else, I'm sure, but when you find a good one, you want to run with it because somebody else is going to try this at some point in time, probably in court. But I think it's pretty sound, and it meets our needs for what we need, and it gives us a little bit more strength in combating these things. I don't know we're against those people, but we're against fraud and deception, and that's what we keep seeing more and more and more of, and we got to stop that. That's just not right. So I know Councilor Hanson had a question. I don't know if you wanted to bring that up, Annie.
I did have a question on 3-12-17, no solicitation notice, but now that I'm rereading it again, I don't know that I have the same concern. So basically this section discusses that if a person has a no solicitation sign anywhere on their property, that even those who are exempt from being certified really should, it's notice to them, official notice that they don't want to be bothered. But the way that I read it now and it's written, I don't think I have the same concern. I was worried that meant that, if someone had one of those little no solicitation, that then the kids from the school or us as council members couldn't stop by their homes to try to ask their opinion on things. But now that I'm rereading it, I think it leaves it open enough that I don't think it'll be a problem. So.
Okay. If anybody got anything else, I'll try and answer it. But, there might be problems. It's a long one. It's pretty detailed, but I think that's why I liked it, is because it was detailed. And if we get challenged on this, it was pretty sound. It'll be interesting. I was kind of excited to see something so well written. So kudos to Roy. I'll call him up and thank him for that one.
Any other questions, Councilor Arnold?
I think it's silly. How are we going to enforce it? We have people that, I'll pick on Mr. Eggett. He said he has a no solicitation sign. They're gonna stand out there and say, call Scott's guys and have him come because somebody knocked on their door, and it's like, I get the fraud thing, for sure, but to say, this just gives I'm gonna call them loonies in the city, the opportunity to start, well, the city doesn't allow you to do this, just like Annie was saying, you got some, and all I've been in 5 or 6 elections, and it's brutal, you knock on somebody's door and they start throwing the no solicitation, and you're like, I got it, and they're going to be saying the city has an ordinance, and it's like, got that too. Are they going to call Scott's guys and who's going to enforce it?
And that was part of what Annie brought up there too. I don't like anything we do, especially in these civil matters. It's complaint driven, and you're not going to get a lot of complaints from things like what you're saying there, Alan. We will get complaints about those people who are putting high pressure sales on people, right. And it's not. It's the fraud stuff. Those are the ones we'll get complaints on.
If it's a fraud type situation?
Well, not specific to this. You have a general fraud issue kind of thing, and we'd be in the same boat. But this one addresses those solicitation issues directly. And that would be one that we would have to look at. How hard we'd enforce it, I don't know, but we could at least get them off the street with that threat that, hey, you're breaking the law here and you need to go away. You don't have a license to do this. And if there's dishonesty and things like that, I don't know how hard we would prosecute somebody, but we could at least put a stop to the actions, if nothing else, by the threats of that, because it would now be on the books. But realistically, on campaigning and things like that, that's not one we would look at. We just don't have the time or the manpower to do something like that. So, yeah, are they all going to get investigated and looked at? No, it's just not realistic. But on some of them that need to be, then we would look at them. So it's just like a lot of things we do, Alan. It's complaint driven, and that's what it would do. So we rarely get a call on a political person. It's only just the ones that are really sketchy and that we should be looking at. I don't know that we've ever gotten a complaint on the other ones. So. And then you look at it too, if I'm a private property owner and I don't want to be bothered, that's my property and I don't want anybody to come on the property. They always have that right too. And so that's the other balance we got to look at, whether it's you as a politician or somebody campaigning or a salesman, if I don't want to be bugged, I should have that right too. So the right that they have as a salesperson is the right to travel. It's the right to be on streets and sidewalks, public property. It's not a right to be on a private property or person's private property. So that's just where we have to find a balance in there somewhere. So that's the attempt at.
Well, and I think, and I get it. It's just that, just recently, within the last couple of months, I took a phone call from a resident. I responded to that resident. I was invited to their home. I went to their property and the front yard. I didn't go in the backyard. I didn't go in the side yard. I went to the side of the house, or the front corner of the house, and looked to see what they were talking about. And they're calling the city saying I trespassed on their property. And I'd hate to give the loonies, which I'll flat out call these people loony, more teeth, more option, because that literally, I was invited to their home.
Right.
And when I went there, because I didn't knock on the door, I went and saw the craziness that they were continuing on, that we've talked about for years and years, and it's
right.
The same thing. And so I didn't even knock on the door, and they said, did you said you'd come to the house, and I said, I did. You were on our property? And so they called the city and said I was trespassing.
Right. And
crazy.
And I agree with you, Alan, but those kind of things we do handle internally. That's just not something we have time for. We're just not going to get bogged down into that. So even when we receive those calls, it's like that's not going to happen.
Well, I just wonder if we're going to have an ordinance like this, do we put some protections in for something that, like I agree, I shouldn't go in their side yard, I couldn't go in their backyard, I didn't go, they don't have a fence, but, it's loonies.
I agree.
This thing takes people into the stratosphere, and
Yeah.
they stand there with the no solicitation sign going, I said this, and it's like, geez. Anyway.
Counselor Stevens, and then Counselor Hanson.
I've got through elections, and I chose to do the bulk of my campaigning doing shoe leather, going to door. And in the first go around, I had only 2 people approach me or cut me off and say, look at the sign and close the door. But I had a number of people actually compliment me about doing old-fashioned campaigning. Well, I had a number of those. I mean, people that were just saying, hey, thank you for coming. And so, but those 2 people, I know where they are, I know where they live, I remember them. But I know 2 people who are both in their mid-30s and have been doing summer sales for 10, 12 years. And they do it, and they're good at it, and they can make more money in 4 months doing pest control, solar panels, whatever, because they're so good that then they ski or do whatever for the rest of the year. And I'm going, man, that's a terrible trap to get into. And he says, I know, but it's hard to do summer sales or the door-to-door sales in the non-summer months. And he says, I can make more money in those 4 summer months than I can by getting a job and working all year, because I'm good at it. And I'm going, that's impressive, but you got to be pretty thick-skinned. So I asked him, both of them. I says, okay, I had this experience during, a campaign. How do you handle it? Do you get rejected? And he says, oh, all the time. I says, does anybody threaten you to call police? And he says, the only ones that have teeth are homeowners associations. If you go into those areas, in those neighborhoods that are where they have that, and there's a sign as you're entering, those I leave. But otherwise, I just say, oh, sorry, I didn't see that, or whatever. But so obviously, there's something there when you're dealing with HOAs, homeowners association, that allows them to, keep the people out. And I don't know if I've never seen what they have and how that compares to this, but I'm just, that always stuck on me that, yeah, we have a problem with HOAs, and we just leave, go somewhere else. Anyway, that's.
Counselor Hanson?
I was just going to say, I think the part that I like the most about it is if we're able to educate the residents that these people should have their certificate from the city with their name on it, but also a badge from the city that matches the certificate. So you don't have that swapping of, you've got the busload of guys that gets dumped off in a neighborhood, and they've done these background checks that are super important nowadays to make sure that not only for the fraud, but that you have people who are safe going door to door. I think that that's something that the residents will want to have and know that they can look for that when somebody comes to their door. So hopefully they don't mix up the legitimate people from the non-legitimate people. And we're not getting a ton of phone calls to the police, but hopefully just the ones that actually need to be looked at. But I liked that part of it a lot. I think that'll help the residents quite a bit.
Okay. Oh, Chief, yeah, come on
Mayor,
up. Counselor Merrill, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, guys, I forgot I was on here. But so I just have a quick question, and maybe Chief Brinkman can help answer this. So if there's a sign that says no trespassing, is it true that if somebody comes when there's that specific sign, then action can be taken? But if there's a no solicitation sign, then you can't take any type of action? Is that true?
The no trespassing sign definitely carries more weight than the no solicitation. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a no trespassing sign up and someone trespasses beyond that point, they could be charged with trespassing. The solicitation, Technically, if we have an ordinance in place and it specifies that in there, they could receive a citation. But the thing you have to remember, I don't anticipate any problems with this. We do get these calls quite often. We go out and they're usually pretty easy to deal with. And the other thing you have to remember in that particular situation, we're always going to investigate. If someone invites you there, they say, no, we didn't. We're going to look at both sides and make a determination. And if there's any evidence to show that you had done anything wrong, then, a citation isn't going to be issued. So what I like about this is it actually gives us the ability to try and screen out these companies that are coming in and the people that are out there in the neighborhoods, because we have had some recent problems where we knew that this wasn't legit, and now they're going to be out. And really, these particular people didn't want to go door to door. They wanted to be out on the street corners, and they were stepping into the roadway, which is illegal anyway. But yeah, I just think this is going to help us just kind of be able to deal with the screening process to issue permits to people to actually go out and do door to door. So, did that answer your question, Councilor Merrill?
It did. It did. Would it be fair to say then that if somebody has a no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted, kind of whatever sign, then that would, because I'm just sharing this because I actually did door-to-door sales for a whole summer in Arizona, and we were specifically taught as salespeople that a house with a no solicitation sign is like a golden door to knock on. I know it sounds completely counterproductive, but we were told in our sales strategies, like basically to knock on those doors because other people were scared to knock on them. So those doors hadn't been hit with a lot of sellers, and so you had a higher likelihood to make a sale at that door. And the fun fact is that it was absolutely true. So if they're being taught that, but we were told if there's a no trespassing sign, do not set foot on that property. So is it fair to say if anyone's really wanting to keep people off their property, just put up a no trespassing sign with that, because that carries more weight?
It definitely carries more weight if it's private property and they put that sign up. I mean, it states right in state code.
Maybe just advise people to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious because, yeah, no solicitation signs were what we were told to actually knock on those doors, which sounds like a horrible sales strategy, but unfortunately it was very effective.
Well, and I do get complaints. I get calls sometimes, hey, there's somebody going through the neighborhood. They're super aggressive. What do we do? And I think it makes the police officer's job a little bit easier because they come up and they just say, hey, do you have the credentials? And they're like, no. And they're like, you're done. Like, there's no, hey, did you do this? You know what I mean? There's not a lot of investigation. It's just kind of like, okay, well, this is our process. If you want to do this, you need to go to get a hold of the city, but you're done for today, you know. And
99% of the time, they usually don't have a permit.
Yeah.
They've just been dropped off to solicit, and so it makes it really easy. But yeah, I think this would be great to have this in place.
And if there's no complaints, I mean, you guys are never going to know. Not everybody's going to get a permit. They could still show up, but it's like so many things that are our laws that are just complaint driven. Like if nobody complains, well, then someone could go through a whole neighborhood and no one would know. But I just think it makes it easier when I get that call. I say, well, yeah, why don't you give the police a call and just have them go check into it, and it'll be real easy for the police. They're just like, you got a permit? Okay.
We're fine to do that. We can always look into exactly what are they selling, what they're supposed to be selling,
yeah,
according to the permit. And,
yeah.
So.
One of the things I just add in follow up to that, a couple of tweaks that I made was more on the emphasis of whether they have the right to be here or not so much the penalty and all that kind of stuff. It is considered a Class B misdemeanor. It will be if you pass it. But there's also right in that penalty section, I wrote in there that any violations of this chapter, you lose any rights you may have had there. So if they're doing those kind of things, even if they have the permit, at that point they just lost it. So it puts a lot more teeth in this than what we have right now on the books. So even if they jump through the hoops and they're going to violate the provisions in here, they just lost those rights. So that would be more of a bigger thing, because then I could just tell Scott, go tell him get out of there. He just lost that right. He doesn't have that privilege, so he's done. in Riverdale City. So that was the idea. And again, that's directed to the fly-by-night, shaky, scary ones. It's got a picture saying, "I need money for this little girl's operation." I mean, that's just ridiculous. Not even in this country, no way to verify it or anything else. But that was my thought on the whole thing. It wasn't. I mean, I do have criminal penalties in there, but I don't anticipate that's the route we'd go. We just want to shut it down more than anything.
Okay, any other questions? A motion would be in order, Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 960 as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Maragona, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Arnold?
Aye. Or yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Hilton?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Merrill?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 6, discussion and consideration of Resolution 2022-35, updating council rules and procedures. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, as I mentioned in the pre-planning meeting, I don't know how you want to do this. I think you've all had the chance to look at it. If there's some you just disagree with or you've got questions or concerns, we could address them individually and then pass it as a whole. I don't know where you're at, so just give me some guidance on how you want to go. We put in a number of changes in here. There is one that I'm asking you to strike, just simply because, again, this was one of my notes that I don't know how long ago, and I meant to research this a little bit more. And it's in section E. Let's see, that's 1.2E. Section G, where it says council members could be expelled by a 2/3 majority vote for acts per cause. I don't even know where I came up with that. I read something somewhere, but I need to research that more because I don't think you can be expelled for cause under state code. So we still have that protection there. And I don't think it'd take a 2/3 majority, but I got to research that one further. I don't want to put that in right now. It's just from my old notes, and I had it in there, and I didn't catch it previously. So that one I don't want you to consider until I look at that a little bit better. And there's a number of things that you could get kicked out for under a state code, but not. I don't even think it'd take a 2/3 majority. So let's not consider that one. We'll bring that in another time. But as far as the other stuff goes there, do you have questions on any of them, disagreements with any of them? You guys tell me. I mean, some of that's just clarifying language and just making it a little easier to read. Some of it was just grammatical things. I know Annie had a couple of concerns and put a little bit more detail, like on our packet and stuff like that. I'm okay with the wording overall. I would mention that, we try to get those out. We put that together, try it on Thursday. It doesn't happen a lot. It's realistically going to be Friday, but there's even been Mondays sometimes before we can get that to you. If we're waiting for stuff, especially from developers, that tends to slow us down. And I don't think that's a mandatory thing. I think her wording in there made that so it was a little bit looser. Same thing with Cody's budget reports and things like that. We don't always get them done just simply because of time. We get them to you as soon as we can. So I don't want that to be, set in cement kind of thing, because we probably won't be able to do that all the time. We'll do the best we can. We try to have that out to you by Friday late in the afternoon at the latest. So, but the other things I'm not overly concerned about. I did hit the closed sessions a little bit more. Maybe that's something we ought to talk about, because that actually came up in the legislature this year. It's kind of a hot topic where everybody, because of COVID, has gone to electronic meetings now. The question is should we be doing closed sessions electronically? So just like Karina tonight, if we were in a closed meeting, the one thing about closed meetings is they are very protected and private. And when one of you calls in for that, how do we know how are we protecting that? If Braden or Karina's up in Bear Lake, we don't know that their spouse is sitting right there or something like that who wouldn't be allowed in that meeting normally. And I know the state's got a lot of heartburn over that. I tried to kind of massage that one a little bit to make it work where we could still do it by making them, if you're the party like Karina tonight, we'd have to have her tell us, yeah, I'm alone, nobody can hear me, all that kind of stuff, and then have them fill out an affidavit when we get back so that we're protected on the record that was a closed meeting, or we just eliminate it altogether if you don't want to take that chance. So I don't know where to go with that one. That one's a little bit tougher. I still like the participation electronically, but it is a little bit scary on a closed session that we have that privacy that we're supposed to guarantee that doesn't leak out in any way, shape, or form. So those came from me on that kind of stuff. But if you got a better idea, I'm open to thoughts on that. So any comments? Any of those really bother you that you don't like? Let me ask you that.
Councilor Arnold?
Alan?
So I did have a problem walking in here with the council members' pay being docked accordingly monthly, because we're not paid by the meeting. I mean, you're a council member every day. I mean, you're getting phone calls every day, you're getting, stopped at church, you're getting, anywhere and everywhere they find out you're a council member, so being docked, and we don't get paid by the meetings. So if we get paid by the meetings, let's set an amount for the meetings. When I get stopped at church, I'll just submit a bill to the city to get paid, but which I don't want to do that. But I think being docked accordingly is weird, although I don't think it's that big of a deal for anybody to make, when I have my heart attack and I'm in the hospital. Do I need to send something to Braden and go, hey, by the way, my family's prone to heart problems, so whatever.
I might.
It gets kind of weird, but I had been walking in here and hearing your story where the council member just stopped coming. I never even thought of that, so.
I don't think we do normally. And that doesn't mean you can call Braden and be excused. You're fine. That's not even an issue. It's just he just wouldn't come. He just quit coming. And this went on for about 4 or 5 months and just never showed up.
Well,
No excuse, no reason,
I
nothing.
think there should be I don't know, call it a recall or something like that. If you don't hear from somebody for 2 months, or they don't show up for 2 months and didn't prearrange it or anything like that, then somehow they're kicked off the council. That's crazy. I never even thought of that. Something should be in there more that way than pay, because.
And I don't dispute that, Alan. I'm not going to lose any sleep on it either way. I do think we need something. By state law, you also have the authority to force that. So if we knew you were home, we could send the chief of police to go bring you into the meeting if we have to get that hardcore. But again, we don't want to do that. I've never heard that happening, and I don't want to be the first either. So, but you never know anymore in the world that we live in. This was just recently. Within the last 6 months that this happened, and it was a huge problem. He finally resigned, but it took a lot of pressure, and he was still getting paid and everything just like normal. And I didn't think that was right. It was like, that's not fair to the taxpayers. So I threw that as a bone, thinking, well, at least we could put a little bit of heat on somebody that way. I hope it would never happen.
And we don't have a formal process to be excused, right? You could.
They just have to contact you.
Me, or can they be Michelle or you, or could it be
you.
a spouse? It's me.
It's you, yeah.
Well.
Now the pressure's on you.
Well, I don't know. Is it really that? Does it say that somewhere?
Yeah. Because it's your meeting. You're the chair, so. In that section F, and I think we've got that somewhere else on that already, that you have to be excused by the mayor.
Being excused by the mayor. Well,
parliamentary procedure.
I just might excuse you if I heard that if you reached out to Michelle. I just might excuse you. If
You found out Alan Hart.
I could still excuse
You know,
him,
and that's
right?
happened before.
Couldn't I still excuse you if they contacted Michelle?
Absolutely.
Sure. So if you contact somebody, or
how you run it,
I will excuse you if you've made an effort and somebody in your family has just said, hey, I would excuse you. And actually, I wonder if I could do it like post, like if I was like, hey, Alan's excused for the meeting because he was in the hospital.
I don't know. We don't want to be that hardcore.
No.
That's never been the intent on that. It's just that we don't want to get
it.
abused. That was the intent. So
Excused by the mayor in advance.
on the 2.12, I just wanted to, we talk about all of our kind of meetings, but the planning session, I just tried to spell that a little bit better, what we do and don't do in there, just so if anybody ever read that, they would know. In the section 4, a lot of the A and nays go to yes and no kind of stuff. I don't think that's an issue. Oh, the one thing on tie votes, again, this came up this last year. The mayor, by statute, does break ties. That doesn't apply, though, if a statute prohibits him from doing that. In that midterm appointments, that's specifically addressed, and some cities have done that, and they're violating the state law because it doesn't allow the mayor to break a tie in that. And so it's in there two different places. I put in there that the mayor breaks ties unless he's prohibited otherwise by statute. That's something we need in there because I don't want to just everybody thinking that's automatic, because it's not automatic. There's a couple of situations where the mayor wouldn't break a tie. That's just being one of them that's on my head. So I think most of those are pretty well straightforward. I don't know if you had any other questions. Oh, 7.5, this is section 7. It's in blue. This is weird. So the only thing that's really new is the amended part. At the very last where I said amended 3 of 2011, this was actually passed in March of 2011, and it never got put in here. I have no idea why, but as I was researching this, I come across this, and I find it in my stuff. Had Michelle go back and look at it, and it got passed. So that is actually in there, even though it wasn't in, I think it was in your copy that I sent you, but it's already there. It just wasn't showing up in written form. And then the amended part, I put that date in there just so we knew if we ever had to pull that up. But that's legit. That's in there, and I just wanted to explain that to you. That's not necessarily part of the package because it already should have been in there. So, any other questions on any of those?
Councilor Arnold,
Is everybody good?
is everybody good? Councilor Stevens, you want to talk about that blue thing a little bit? Had a feeling?
There's really nothing to talk about that, though, because it's there now, unless you wanted to take it out, because it's there now.
Okay, well, it's there now, but we haven't approved it yet, and so.
It was approved in 2011. That's what I'm trying to say, is it was approved clear back then. It was the year after we passed these.
I was just gonna say, is it gonna be grandfathered? But
No, it's in there.
Never mind.
There's nothing to discuss on it unless you wanted to take it out.
No.
But it's on the table to be taken out if you want to address it.
No,
Should we table that to?
no.
Or just for 90 days.
So unless they put if I'm reading that right, unless they stipulate, it defaults to 90 days for tabling.
We put it on the recorders. She'll keep track of that, yeah.
Okay.
On that. So is that something maybe in council meetings we need to start letting people know, like, for example, the property down by the storage units, that we maybe should have said this is tabled, but you need to work with the city because otherwise, they will have to start over the process completely with the planning commission.
If we're following these rules, we should be keeping track of that.
So maybe it's something we need to add in to let people know when we table stuff.
Yeah. If there's not a time certain on that, we need to be advising them that will eventually drop off.
Okay.
And it takes no action on the part of the council?
Nope.
Okay.
By your rule, it's automatic, so.
Actually, I like that.
Me too.
I do too.
That's why I threw it back in there. I thought we should have had this in here. I like this. So.
Okay.
Otherwise, things can just go on
Right.
perpetually.
Right.
Councilor Arnold, raise your
I'd
hand.
move to pass resolution 2022-35 as stated within the packet, minus the one sentence that Steve.
1.2G.
1.2G, to 2/3 removing someone for cause.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Hilton,
Yes.
Counselor Stevens,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold,
Yes.
Counselor Hanson.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to the comments section. Any comments from the city council for this meeting? Okay, any comments from the city staff?
No, we have nothing further.
Oh, Councilor Arnold?
Sorry, I do have one question. I asked you about the Higgs home that has been reported as a home for boys, sex offender boys. Do we know anything about that? Have they filed for anything?
No, we're still looking at it. We've got some phone calls out right now, looking at it even from our end, and also the base, because the same thing's going to apply there potentially under those rules. But we haven't heard anything back other than that. We keep getting all kinds of weird reports. They've talked about adding some driveway, some different feel. Some of that would be code violations, some of it wouldn't. I think on the outside things, we might look at that one a little bit differently because that's not pertaining to the house itself. So I think we can enforce that, especially if they start touching that hillside. We're going to be all over that one because that's a health safety issue for everybody up there. So that one I think we would still challenge them on, and I don't know that their rights apply outside of the house. It would primarily be inside. So that's our thought at this point, Alan. But we haven't seen anything yet. We're watching it and keeping an eye on things, but it's a weird one. It's a weird one.
I was told that the garage has been turned into some sort of barracks.
They're in the process of making it a classroom, I think is what we heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then, and they're doing things up there during the day, and I'd heard that people weren't staying overnight, but they were staying there during the day. I don't know if they're busting.
We get reports both ways. We've heard both, that they are staying and they're not. So we're not really sure.
You're watching it.
Yep. Yeah, that one won't go away. We'll keep an eye on that one for a while. It's just our hands are a little bit tied, but that's not going to slip away.
Okay.
We're keeping an eye on it.
The base might be extra sensitive with the recent jet
Right,
crash.
and that was what our discussions have been
probably-
because they might jump all over that. I don't know, but I think given that situation and now you've got a group home down there, they may look at that completely different now than they may have a month ago even.
What kind of jurisdiction do they have?
They have all sorts of easements and restrictions on building and
The people that live along that way,
That flight
there's only
path,
two
yeah.
people that actually refuse to sell their rights to increase the population of a residence. So the government came in and paid them $3,000 to say, you have 4 people in the home, you can not increase that above 4. But now it's a group home that I've heard 16 or more
yeah.
that are there, not including staff. So
The nice thing about that is it's not us. And they had those rights established way before anybody, and they're not going to back off on it if they get hardcore about it, and they'll go after them. So it'd be kind of refreshing to see the feds do it rather than us.
No, that easement's a state easement, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is it a
Partnership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the U.S. government asked for it, and the state enforced it and pushed it through. So
I thought that was kind of weak that the state did the easement.
I think they probably have to because they're the ones that would have the jurisdiction on it. So that's probably why that happened.
okay, thank you.
All right, I just have one thing. Go ahead.
just say
Go ahead,
something real
Council
quick?
Merrill. Yep.
I was just going to say, I've actively been watching that area to try to see the activity. And around noon, a bus comes in with kids. The other day, I counted 14 kids and 4 staff members. So that way, because people were also told that it was not operating. I just want to make sure that it's on record. It is operating. I've seen it with my own eyes several times. They come and go. They load up the vans. They take the kids. So I've seen the amount of kids because some people said it's just staff members going in to prepare the home, but I've also seen the kids as well, or the teenagers as well. So that way I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that I firsthand knowledge and understanding that it is operating. They have been doing whatever activities going to and from the home. So that way everyone's aware of that.
We're aware of that. We get regular reports from other family members that watch it fairly close. So we're staying on it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I just had one thing. As hopefully all of you know, we're redoing our general plan right now. We're in the kind of the early stages. We're still in stage 1. The city website has a really cool link that it'll take you to. There's a survey that can be filled out. You can give just open comments. And there's also a really neat interactive map where residents have gone in and put little dots and said, hey, I think the speed limit's too high here. People go 40 miles an hour by the school. There's all kinds of really cool comments. I'm really impressed with how many people have commented so far. They're like, I really like this area and I think this would be great here, or, you need to make this area left-hand turn or right-hand turn only. Way more comments than I thought would be on there. I don't know if any of you saw. So the general plan, the consultants that are doing it spent some time talking to me one day and asked me some questions. And one of the things they asked me was, what did I consider to be Riverdale's, quote, kind of Main Street area or downtown area, And it was hard to answer. Like, I don't even know. I was just like, man, and I was thinking back to when I lived here, almost 30 years ago, and the fire station was where Buffalo Wild Wings, and we've lost a lot of our historical areas, and I think other towns, and well, if we have a gathering, it might be the park, but and they're like, well, what about a town square? Where do you consider that? And it was just a lot of questions that I was like, dang, I'm the mayor and I'm having a hard time. What's your downtown, And so it was just kind of fun. So I put it on Facebook, just kind of, hey guys, what do you guys think? I had people coming at me, you're not changing the name of Riverdale Road, and all kinds of crazy things. You're not changing 4400 South. It was crazy. I was like, okay, that wasn't exactly what I was going for. I was just hoping to have a kind of a fun discussion. Hey guys, what do you think of when you think of this? Hoping some of the old time residents would jump on and say, I remember when we did this. It didn't go that direction. But the big point is, if you get a chance, go check out the website and check out that map. Like the comments, you'll be able to click on the dots and you'll be like, it's kind of fun to try and figure out who put them on there. There's some good comments about the senior center. And anyway, it's just kind of fun. Like to figure out, I wonder who put that on there. Put your own comments on there. Encourage your friends and neighbors to put them on there.
We're okay as council members to put stuff on there?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
I would think so.
Or there'd be a million about the schools.
And is it anonymous?
I think so.
I mean,
and
if
then
you're saying you got to figure it out, we can put whatever we.
Well, and then other people go in and they like the comments. There's likes and dislikes. You know what I mean? It's a really cool map, and I worry just a little bit that we're not getting the word out good enough. Like we put some of them in the newsletter, right? And I guess some of the people are doing it, but like I just wonder if I ask my neighbors, hey, do you know we're doing this? I don't know if they would. People are just so busy, and I just don't know if they know.
Well, I would worry about somebody putting a comment and wanting some sort of response.
Yeah.
Because when they're saying,
it's pretty clear that it's a map, and you can just, you know what I mean? You just put it on. I don't know. Yeah. But there's a survey, which I haven't taken. It looked like it's kind of long, maybe 10 minutes, I think it said. But then other people were like, where do I give comments? And I directed them there. And people were accusing us of wasting a bunch of taxpayer money and stuff. I had to explain that we got a grant to do this. But anyway, any encouragement of your friends, y'all live all over the city, just say, hey, now's your chance. Like, get on there and let them know what you think the future should be. And just really good comments about trails and just different areas, I've always thought this would fit good back here. And anyway, it's really cool.
I did have a meeting with the representative for the group today, just he and I, and we talked about it. They were at the community center for the Halloween Carnival.
Yeah.
He said he got commentary, but it was somewhat lukewarm. A lot of the residents refused to participate. He had a captive audience while they're getting ice cream, and he kept trying and trying. He said some people would drop the pen and paper, and others just wouldn't participate if they didn't want to be bothered by it. So it was kind of interesting to hear his comments. So I echo what the mayor's saying. Maybe liaisons of the city might get a different response than maybe just somebody they don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason, right? It's like the same person who annoys you with, hey, can you fill out a survey for 5 minutes? Like, I don't want to do your survey. Leave me alone. But maybe residents, or council members, planning commissioners, that sort of thing, can maybe get a better response. So I would echo some of the comments you made, Mayor.
Yeah.
They were there at
The fire
fire
station.
and I stood by there and I watched them for probably, I was in a conversation, and I was looking in that direction, probably 30 minutes, maybe slightly longer. And I think there were 4 of them, and they had the Post-its, and they were actively walking around trying to get people's to, and I got this sincere impression. Well, one, my personal bias is I get hit up to do surveys at work, and probably 4 or 5 a month, and it's so annoying. I just delete. But anyway, I don't think people in the mindset to understand what they're, because you have to kind of think about some of those questions that they're asking, because you go about your day and your business so routinely that you don't see things in a forward, futuristic viewpoint. And those guys were trying, and they didn't get much at the fire open house. And it was frustrating for them.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job. Getting back to that question, they called all of us in as department heads and administrators, and they asked us that same question: where's the city center? And it was shocking because my answer was Riverdale Road. And then when I talked to the other department heads, almost every one of them said the same thing. And these people are shocked. They're going, no, not your road. Where's your city center? Riverdale Road. They can't relate to that. They think everybody has this center location, but ours, and that's why I said it's from the border with Roy to the border with South Ogden, following Riverdale Road. That is our city center. I mean, what else do you say? And it's a weird concept to them, but we kind of had to explain that. That's how we go. That's just our life. I mean, we'd love to have that at some point in time, but we're not there now, so.
That is how the residents have been responding to that question by and large. He said that today as well.
Riverdale Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also did say that the fire station open house was much better and much more informative and valuable, got better information than at the Halloween Carnival. He did say that.
Well, they were organized. You know, they give you the Post-it, you know, put it there, put it on the big maps that were up there. I didn't see the Halloween, but they were actually quite. It was informative, but people just aren't in that mindset.
Yeah, it's just hard because we're gonna get this general plan, and then down the road someone's gonna be making a decision, and people are gonna be like, "How'd you make that decision?" And be like, "Well, we used this general plan that we all as a city came together to create." And they'll just anyway, we're just trying to get as much. And we've had meetings like, how can we engage them? The consultants are like, "Do you want to use surveys? Do you want to use flyers? Do you want us to show up at events? What can we do? Like, how can we get a hold of them? Newsletter posts, and it just." I don't know. And even you guys, you're going to have a hard time remembering when you walk out of this room to go to the city website and look at that page. And I wouldn't ask you to do it if it wasn't worth your time, because I know you're busy. But you'll be like, wow, this is well, actually, we should send them a link. Could we send these guys just a link to the page?
It's on the city
Yeah, just send them an email.
Send it to my Riverdale email that I check so very much.
Send it to their home emails. No, it's worth your time. You'll be like, whoa. This is on the city website? Yeah. Like, there's tons of information here. So, anyway, that's my soapbox for that. So, and that's all I have. So, with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes.